There are more than 50 infants buried here at Pioneer Cemetery. Joining me right now is Jeff O'Brien, and he is a Saskatoon archivist with the City of Saskatoon. Jeff, what does that say about the mortality rate back in the 1800s and 1900s?
Well, it could be pretty terrible. There's 162 burials here. 51 of those are infants. Another 14 of them are children. So more than a third of the people buried in this cemetery are children. And basically, you know, infant mortality rates were very high. There were all sorts of things. If the childbirth itself didn't go bad, there were all sorts of things, diphtheria, and, typhoid, all sorts of diseases that could strike small children. Maternal mortality was also high. The numbers are something like 1 pregnancy in 25 that ended in the death of the mother. And all over this cemetery, there are mothers and their children who died in the process of childbirth.
Including Rosetta Ann Clark right behind us here. Tell us a bit about her.
Right, well, Rosetta Ann, she was a young mother in her 20s, and she has beside her, there is another grave. That's her infant son, who she gave birth to and who died a couple years prior. And then she had a baby, died in childbirth, probably of childbed fever, which was one of the big 4 killers of women in childbirth back in the day.
And I also know there is an unidentified grave here for Mary Trounce. Tell us a bit about this.
Well, Mary Trounce, the Trounce family was one of the earliest groups of settlers here in Saskatoon in the 1880s. And the Trounce house actually was Saskatoon's very first party house. In the summertime, you know, everybody's working, but wintertime, all the work's done, and so that's the social season. And Mrs. Trounce wrote back to her family in England religiously, and those letters have all ended up at the archives, the provincial archives here in Saskatoon. And so they're a fantastic source for the history, the day-to-day life of people in this place. But unfortunately, Mary Trounce died in childbirth.
And I do have to point out a pretty interesting story with Mary Trounce is a baby switching story.
Oh yeah, that's one night. So okay, there was a party. I think maybe it was New Year's Eve, 1884, 85,
right.
And they had a party at the Trounce house, and there was a loft above the house, and so all the adults are downstairs, and all the mothers had wrapped their babies up and put them upstairs in the loft, and a couple of jokers snuck up during the party and they switched all the babies around. So afterwards, everybody's getting dressed to go home, and it's like all the babies are wrong. So you can imagine there was a certain amount of upsetness.
Now there's lots to learn here at Pioneer Cemetery. What is an interesting fact that you really love to share with the community?
Well, one of the things I like about cemeteries generally, and older cemeteries the better, is that really they are in and of themselves kind of an archives, right? A great big archives full of stone, but all that stone has information, has names and dates, and you know, in the captioning underneath, in the style of the stone, you can tell about the history of a place and of its people, wandering from gravestone to gravestones. And older historic cemeteries, you know, they contain generations of memory. And so cemeteries are fantastic places in that sense.
And of course, cemeteries also are a popular place to hear of legends and hauntings, but there is actually no proven facts that things like that did happen here. I heard a bit of a legend that you can hear the cries of the children who are buried here.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah.
There is, I'll tell you flat out. I mean, you would think that a cemetery would be, and if you're going to have a haunting, that a cemetery would be a place where it would happen. But there is no local tradition, there's no anecdotal evidence of any sort of paranormal activity in this place. No spooks, no ghosts, no babies crying in the night. I think the dead here are resting very peacefully. Thank you.
Very, very good. All right, well, Jeff is full of fun facts and interesting facts about this cemetery and those who are buried here. You definitely want to stay tuned because there's lots more coming up.